Oirats of the westernmost group of the Mongols whose ancestral home is in the Altai region of western Mongolia. Although the Oirats originated in the eastern parts of Central Asia, the most prominent group today is located in Kalmykia, a federal subject of Russia, where they are called Karmics. Historically, the Oirats were composed of four major tribes: Dzungar, Torghut, Dörbet, and Khoshut. The minor tribes include Khoid, Bayads, Myangad, Zakhchin, Baatud. Etymology: the name probably means oi and ard, and they were counted among the forest people in the 13th century. A second opinion believes the name derives from Mongolian word oirat, meaning close, as in close, nearer ones. The name Oirat may derive from a corruption of the group's original name Dörbet, meaning the allied four, perhaps inspired by the designation Dörbet. Other Mongols at times used the term Dochin Mongols for themselves, but there was rarely as great a degree of unity among larger numbers of tribes as among the Oirats. Writing system. In the 17th century, Zalupandita, a Gelug monk of the Khoshut tribe, devised a new writing system called Dörbet for use by the Oirat people. This system was developed on the basis of the older Mongolian script, but had a more developed system of diacritics to exclude misreading, and reflected some lexic and grammar differences of the Oirat language from Mongolian. The Dörbet writing system remained in use in Kalmykia until the mid-1920s, when it was replaced by a Latin-based script, and later the Cyrillic alphabet. It can be seen in some public signs in the Karmic capital, at least, and is superficially taught in schools. In Mongolia it was likewise replaced by the Cyrillic alphabet in 1941. Some Oirats in China still use Dörbet as the primary writing system, as well as Mongolian script. A monument of Zalupandita was unveiled on the 400th anniversary of Zalupandita's birth, and on 350th anniversary of his creation of the Dörbet. History. The Oirats share some history, geography, culture and language with the Eastern Mongols, and were at various times united under the same leader as a larger Mongol entity, whether that ruler was of Oirat descent or of Chinggisids, comprising the Khoshut, Chorus, Orolot, Torghut, and Dörbet ethnic groups. They were dubbed Karmic Kalmyk, which means remnant or to remain, by the Western Turkic neighbors. Various sources also list the Bayads, Buzava, Keraites, and Naiman tribes as comprising part of the Dörbet. Some tribes may have joined the original four only in later years. This name may however reflect the Kalmyks remaining Buddhist rather than converting to Islam, or the Kalmyks remaining in then Altai region when the Turkic tribes migrated further west. After the fall of the Yuan dynasty, Oirat and Eastern Mongols had developed separate identities to the point where Oirats called themselves four Oirats, while they only called those under the Khagans in the east as Mongols. Early history. One of the earliest mentions of the Oirat people in a historical text can be found in the Secret History of the Mongols, the 13th century chronicle of Genghis Khan's rise to power. In the Secret History, the Oirats are counted among the forest people and are said to live under the rule of a shaman chief known as Baki. They lived in Tuva and Mongolian Khövsgöl province, and the Oirats moved to the south in the 14th century. In one famous passage, the Oirat chief, Khiruge Baki, uses a yada or thunderstone to unleash a powerful storm on Genghis' army. The magical ploy backfires, however, when an unexpected wind blows the storm back at Khiruge. During early stages of Temujin Genghis's rise, Oirats
under Khiruge fought against Genghis and were defeated. Oirats were fully submitted to Mongol rule after their ally Jamaka, Temujin's childhood friend and later rival, was destroyed. Subject to the Khan, Oirats would form themselves as a loyal and formidable faction of the Mongol war machine. In 1207, Jochi the Elder, son of Genghis, subjugated the forest tribes including the Oirats and the Kyrgyz. The great Khan gave those people to his son, Jochi, and had one of his daughters, Chechigen, married the Oirat chief Khoid, his son. There were notable Oirats in the Mongol Empire such as Arghanaga and his son Nauruz. In 1256, a body of the Oirats under Bakatima joined Hulagu's expedition to Iran and fought against Hashashans, Abbasids in Persia. The Ilkhan Hulagu and his successor Abuha resettled them in Turkey, and they took part in the Second Battle of Homs where the Mongols were defeated. The majority of the Oirats, who were left behind, supported Ari Kubok against Kublai in the Toluid civil war. Kublai defeated his younger brother and they entered the service of the victor. In 1295, more than 10,000 Oirats under Torghut fled Syria, then under the Mamluks because they were despised by both Muslim Mongols and local Turks. They were well received by the Egyptian Sultan al-Adil Kitbafer of Oirat origin. Ali Pasha, who was the governor of Baghdad, head of an Oirat ruling family, killed Ilkhan Arpakun, resulting in the disintegration of Mongol Persia. Due to the fact that the Oirats were near both the Chagatai Khanate and the Golden Horde, they had strong ties with them and many Mongol Khans had Oirat wives. After the expulsion of the Yuan dynasty from China, the Oirats revived in history as a loose alliance of the four major West Mongolian tribes. The alliance grew, taking power in the remote region of the Altai Mountains, northwest of Hami Oasis. Gradually they spread eastward, annexing territories then under the control of the Eastern Mongols, and hoping to re-establish a unified nomadic rule under the banner. A non-Genghisids alliance was formed by the four Oirats, made out of the Karaites, Naiman, Bayads, and older Oirats. The only Borjigid ruling tribe was the Khoshut, while the others were ruled by non-Genghisids. The Ming Chinese had helped the Oirats rise to power over the Mongols during the Ming-Yongle Emperor's reign after 1410 when the Ming defeated the Kublai Uljatima and the Borjigid power was weakened. The Borjigid Khans were displaced from power by the Oirats with Ming help and only ruled as puppet Khans until the Ming and Oirats ended the alliance when the Yongle Emperor launched a campaign against them. The greatest ruler of the four Oirats was Azentaisi, who led the four Oirats from 1438 to 1454, during which time he unified Mongolia under his puppet Khan Totoabaka. In 1449 Azentaisi and Totoabak mobilized the cavalry along the Chinese border and invaded Ming China, defeating and destroying the Ming defenses at the Great Wall and the reinforcements sent to intercept the cavalry. In the process, the Zhangtong Emperor was captured at Tumu. The following year, Azan returned the emperor after an unsuccessful ransom attempt. After claiming the title of Khan, to which only lineal descendants of Genghis Khan could claim, Azan was killed. Shortly afterwards, Oirat power declined. For the 14th until the middle of the 18th century, the Oirats were often at war with the Eastern Mongols and also few times reunited with the Eastern Mongols during the rule of Dayan Khan and Tumen Zizat Khan. The Khoshut Khanate, the Oirats converted to Tibetan Buddhism around 1615, and it was not long before they became involved in the conflict between the Gelug and Kalmykia schools. At the request of the Gelug school, in 1637, Gushi Khan, the leader of the Khoshuts in Kokonor, defeated Chotu Kongtaji,
the Kharkar prince who supported the Kalmykia school and conquered Amdo. The unification of Tibet followed in the early 1640s, with Gushi Khan proclaimed Khan of Tibet by the 5th Dalai Lama and the establishment of the Khoshut Khanate. The title Dalai Lama itself was bestowed upon the 3rd Lama of the Gelug Tulku lineage by Altan Khan. Am means, in Mongolian, ocean of wisdom. Amdo, meanwhile, became home to the Khoshuts. In 1717, the Dzungars invaded Tibet and killed Lhab Khan, a grandson of Gushi Khan and the 4th Khan of Tibet. The King Empire conquered Upper Mongolia of the Oirats Khoshut Khanate in the 1720s. In 1723 Lobzang Danjin, another descendant of Gushi Khan, defended Amdo against Manchu King dynasty's attempt to extend its rule into Tibet, but was crushed in the following year and 80,000 people were killed. By that period, Upper Mongolian population reached 200,000. Thus, Amdo fell under Manchu domination. The Dzungar Khanate, the 17th century, saw the rise in power of another Oirat empire in the east, known as the Khanate of Dzungaria, which stretched from the Great Wall of China to present-day eastern Kazakhstan, and from present-day northern Kyrgyzstan to southern Siberia. It was the last empire of nomads, which was ruled by chorus noblemen. The king conquered China in the mid-17th century and sought to protect its northern border by continuing the divide-and-rule policy the Ming predecessors had successfully instituted against the Mongols. The Manchu consolidated the rule over the East Mongols of Manchuria. They then persuaded the East Mongols of Inner Mongolia to submit themselves as vassals. Finally, the East Mongols of Outer Mongolia sought the protection of the Manchu against the Dzungars. Some scholars estimate that about 80% of the Dzungar population were destroyed by a combination of warfare and disease during the Manchu King conquest of Dzungaria in 1755 to 1757. The Dzungar population reached 600,000 in 1755. The main population of the Khoid, Baatud, Zakhchin Oirats who battled against the king were killed by the Manchu soldiers, and after the fall of the Dzungar Khanate they became small ethnic groups. There were 600,000 Kharkar Mongols and 600,000 Oirats in 1755, and now 3 million Kharkar and 638,372 Oirats live in 4 counties, while a few hundred chorus people live in Mongolia. Kalmyks.Kho or Lok Taoshi of the Torghuts, and Dalai Taoshi of Dörbet, led the people westward in 1607, and they established the Karmic Khanate. By some accounts this move was precipitated by internal divisions or by the Khoshut tribe. Other historians believe it more likely the migrating clans were seeking pasture land for their herds, scarce in the Central Asian highlands. Part of the Khoshut and Oirat tribes would join the migration almost a century later. The Karmic migration had reached as far as the steppes of southeast Europe by 1630. At the time, that area was inhabited by the Nogai horde, but under pressure from Kalmyk warriors, the Nogais fled to the Crimea and the Kuban River. Many other nomadic peoples in the Eurasian steppes subsequently became vassals of the Karmic Khanate, part of which is in the area of present-day Kalmykia. The Kalmyks became Russian ally, and a treaty to protect southern Russian borders was signed between the Karmic Khanate and Russia. Later they became nominal, then full subjects of the Russian Tsar. In 1724 the Kalmyks came under control of Russia. By the early 18th century, there were approximately 300–350,000 Kalmyks and 15 million Russians. The Tsardom of Russia gradually chipped away the autonomy of the Karmic Khanate. These policies encouraged establishment of Russian and German settlements on pastures where the Kalmyks used to roam and feed the livestock.
The Russian Orthodox Church, by contrast, pressured Buddhist Kalmyks to adopt orthodoxy. In January 1771, the oppression of Tsarist administration forced a larger part of Kalmyks to migrate to Dzungaria. 200,000 Kalmyks began the migration from the pastures on the left bank of the Volga River to Dzungaria, through the territories of the Bashkir and Kazakh enemies. The last Kalmyk Khan Abashi led the migration to restore the Dzungar Khanate and Mongolian independence. As C.D. Bachman notes, it is quite clear that the Torghuts had not intended to surrender the Chinese, but had hoped to lead an independent existence in Dzungaria. Abashi Khan sent his 30,000 cavalries to the Russo-Turkish War in 1768–1769 to gain weapon before the migration. The Empress Catherine the Great ordered the Russian army, Bashkirs and Kazakhs to exterminate all migrants, and Catherine the Great abolished the Karmic Khanate. The Khiruge attacked them near Borkashle. About 100,000–150,000 Kalmyks who settled on the west bank of the Volga River couldn't cross the river because the river didn't freeze in the winter of 1771, and Catherine the Great executed influential nobles of them. After 7 months of travel, only 1/3 of the original group reached Dzungaria. The Manchu King Empire transmigrated the Kalmyks to 5 different areas to prevent the revolt, and influential leaders of the Kalmyks died soon. Following the Russian Revolution, the settlement was accelerated, Buddhism stamped out, and herds collectivized. On January 22, 1922, Mongolia proposed to immigrate the Kalmyks during a famine in Kalmykia, but the Russian government refused. Some 71–72,000 Kalmyks died during that famine. The Kalmyks revolted against Russia in 1926, 1930, and 1942–1943. In March 1927, Soviet deported 20,000 Kalmyks to Siberia, Tundra and Karelia. The Kalmyks founded Sovereign Republic of Oirat Kalmyk on March 22, 1930. The Oirat state had a small army, and 200 Kalmyk soldiers defeated 1,700 Soviet soldiers in Dörbet province of Kalmykia, but the Oirats state destroyed by the Soviet army in 1930. Kalmykia nationalists and pan-Mongolists attempted to migrate Kalmyks to Mongolia in the 1920s. Mongolian government suggested to accept the Mongols of Soviet Union, including Kalmyks, to Mongolia, but Russia refused the attempt. In 1943, the entire population of 120,000 Kalmyks were deported to Siberia by Stalin, accused of supporting invading Axis armies attacking Stalingrad. 1/5 of the population is thought to have perished during and immediately after the deportation. Around half of Kalmyk people deported to Siberia died before being allowed to return home in 1957. The government of the Soviet Union forbade teaching Kalmyk language during the deportation. The Kalmyks' main purpose was to migrate to Mongolia. Mongolian leader Khiruge Khybilson attempted to migrate the deportees to Mongolia, and he met with them in Siberia during his visit to Russia. Under the law of the Russian Federation of April 26, 1991, on rehabilitation of exiled peoples, repressions against Kalmyks and other peoples were qualified as an act of genocide. Now they are trying to revive the language and religion. In 2010, Kalmyks were 176,800 people. Xinjiang Mongols. The Mongols of Xinjiang form a minority, principally in the northern part of the region, numbering 194,500 in 2010.
about 50,000 of which are Dongxiangs. They are primarily descendants of the surviving Torghuts and Khoshuts who returned from Kalmykia, and of the Chaka stationed there as garrison soldiers in the 18th century. The emperor had sent messages asking the Kalmyks to return, and erected a smaller copy of the Patala in Johol to mark their arrival. A model copy of that little Patala was made in China for the Swedish explorer Sven Hedin, and was erected at the World's Columbian Exposition of Chicago. It is now in storage in Sweden, where there are plans to re-erect it. Some of the returnees did not come that far and still live now as Muslims at the southwestern end of Lake Issyk-Kul in present-day Kyrgyzia. Alasha Mongols bordering Gansu and west of Irge River is called Alksa or Alasa. All Sharan Mongols who moved there are called the Alasha Mongols. Torbai Gushi Khan's fourth son Alyush was opposed to the Khan's brother Baybagas. Alyush's eldest son is Batur-Erkh John and Korali. After the battle between Guldan Boshid Khan and Okurtu II Khan, Batur-Erkh John and Korali moved to Sidam with his 10,000 households. The fifth Dalai Lama wanted land for them from the Qing government, thus in 1686, the emperor permitted them to reside in Alasha. In 1697, Alasha Mongols were administered in Khoshut, and some units. A Khoshut with 8 sums was created. Batur-Erkh John and Korali was appointed to Beal, and Alasha was thus a Zasag Khoshut. Alasha was however like an Amag, and never administered under a Chugan. In 1707, when Batur-Erkh John and Korali died, his son Abu succeeded him. He was in Beijing from his youth, served as bodyguard of the emperor, and a princess was given to him, thus making him a Khoshut-Tavnan, i.e., emperor's groom. In 1793, Abu became Jinwang. There are several thousand Muslim Alasha Mongols. Ajin Mongols. Mongols who lived along the Ajin River descended from Ravjia, a grandson of Torghut Khan from the Volga River. In 1678, Ravjia, with his mother, younger sister and 500 people, went to Tibet to pray. While they were returning via Beijing in 1704, the king ruler, the Kangxi emperor, let them stay there for some years and later organized a Khoshut for them in a place called Surte and made Ravjia the governor. In 1716, the Kangxi emperor sent him with his people to Hami, near the border of King China and Dzungar Khanate, for intelligence-gathering purposes against the Oirats. When Ravjia died, his eldest son Denzin succeeded him. He was afraid of the Dzungar and wanted the king government to allow them to move away from the border. They were settled in Dala-Ul-Altin. When Denzin died in 1740, his son Lubzan Dajar succeeded him and became Beal. Now Ajin Torghuts number some 5,000. In 1753, they were settled on the banks of the Ajin River, and the Ajin River Torghut Khoshut was thus formed. Oirat tribes, Sart Karmiks and Xinjiang Oirats are not vulgar Karmiks. Karmiks and the Kalmyks are a subgroup of the Oirats. Altai Uriankai, Baatud, Bayads, Chantu, Koros, Dörbet, Khoshut, Khoid, Khotins, Kalmyks, Myangad, Oirats, Sart Kalmyks, Torghut, Zakhchin. Popular culture. Oirat is a playable nation in Europa, universalis IV.